Thank you for joining the City of Kingston's Common Council at our Community Development meeting. Today is September 22nd. My name is Andrea Schott, the Council President and organizer for our virtual meetings. Before we begin, we would like to go over a few guidelines to help us navigate the system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. We ask that members of the public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. As organizer, I reserve the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Council members and city staff will control their own mute button. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. If a council member or staff wishes to speak, they will raise their hands. The chairperson will call on them before they speak by stating their name clearly for our audio listeners. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city's website. Although we will not have public speaking tonight, you could sign up to speak at our council meeting by emailing Elisa Tinty at emtinty@kingston.gov by 2 p.m. on October 6th. Or you could submit written comments to the same email address, Elisa Tinty, emtinty@kingston-ny.gov, or you could drop them off at the drop box located outside the side door of City Hall. We also encourage you to reach out to committee chairs or your ward's representative at any time. If you have any audio issues, send a text message to the following number, 845-594-6120. Please note that phone calls will not be answered during the meeting. The number again to text is 845-594-6120. As the organizer, I reserve the right to lock and pause the meeting to eject anyone who has behaved inappropriately. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance Chair Alderman Steve Shabbat, committee members, Alderwoman Rita Worthington, Alderman Jeffrey Ventura Morel, city staff from the Community Development, Amy Peterson, Mayor Steve Noble, and Grants Director Kristen Wilson, and also Community Development Amanda Brooke. Thank you for your patience during these difficult times, and on behalf of the Common Council, I wish you and your family good health. I now turn the floor over to Chair Alderman Steve Shabbat.
Thank you, President Short, and once again, I thank you for running these all of these many meetings. You're doing a great job. We've certainly got the hang of this by now. For the most, I shouldn't say it. I'm going to jinx this, right? Anyway, I will call the meeting to order. I have 6:36. So the meeting is in order here. First item of business. Has everyone had a chance to read through the minutes of our last meeting? And if so, I will take a motion to dispense. We have a motion by Jeffrey. Do we have a second? Second by Rita Worthington. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, minutes are accepted. Okay, move right along. First is we have some unfinished business from last month. And I see the mayor is here. I presume he's back to talk about that again. I think where we left off, we were discussing the intersection problem and the demolition work and getting some money from a community development in order to help out with that. And I think everybody was, I shouldn't say uncomfortable, but I think everybody, including myself, wanted to kind of look at things and make sure we were actually allowed to do that. I'll be honest, I've kind of looked through things. I really couldn't find anything that says yes or no or anything. So I'm going to, Amy,
Andrea, is there a way you can text him and let him know that his volume is going
Yeah,
up?
I was actually I just texted Amy because I was like, is that me or Steve? Steve, we're having problems hearing you. Steve Shabbat. So we pretty much missed what you just said. Can you hear me? If I'll text you too, but while I'm talking, there's two callers on the line. I know one of them is on the advisory board. Are you both on the advisory board? Can you just say yes?
Yes.
Okay. Who is
Yes.
this? We just need to know minutes and your name does.
Sorry, this
Can you
is
tell us
Cassandra
who-
Dasty.
Oh, hi, Cassandra. Thank you. All
How are you? And this is DCG.
right. Yeah, we got you both. Thank you. Steve, did you hear what I had said
Okay,
before?
can everybody hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. All right. Did you catch anything? You didn't catch anything I said, right? I don't know what, my microphone was colored white. I've never seen that before. So, anyway, did you hear anything I said? Probably nothing, right?
I heard you.
Can you hear me now?
We can
Okay.
hear you fine.
All right. So,
Now. You were talking about the unfinished business
Okay,
from last
great.
month.
All right. okay. All right. So, do I need to repeat everything I said? Did you catch any of my drift?
If you want us to know what you said, then you have to repeat
Okay.
it.
All right. So, I just said we were continuing our discussion from last month. And if memory me, I believe we were at the point where we were talking about putting some money towards the intersection project of Grand and Pine Grove and the demolition of Planet Wings. I think everybody was, again, maybe not uncomfortable, but everybody, including myself, just wanted to make sure we were allowed to use our funds for a project like this. I kind of scoured through regulations. I really couldn't find anything either way. That's why I'm hoping the mayor is here, Amy's here. Perhaps Kristen can help us with that tonight. Again, as I said last month, I don't mind helping out with this project. I think it's a worthwhile project. I think that's an awful intersection. Planet Wings really has to go. And one of the main complaints I hear from people is it's costing payers money. So, if we can find ways to alleviate some of that, I'm all for it. So anyway, I know the mayor is on board here, so I'm going to let him go first here. I don't know if you want to, start from the beginning where we were last month, or, I think everybody that's here tonight was here last month. So it's up to you how far backwards you want to go.
Thank you, Chairman Shabbat. I just wanted to, start the conversation tonight by, saying that, I have talked to both Amy and Amanda about CDBG funds and their use in public infrastructure projects. And so, Kingston has a track record actually of using CDBG funds to do some really important, public projects, both on nonprofit buildings, owned buildings, as well as city projects ourselves. And so everything from, using funding to help build the parklet at the intersection of Hasbrook Avenue and Delaware Avenue, to helping to fund sidewalks over by George Washington Elementary School with CDBG funds. We've also done nonprofit public kind of projects like funding the facade improvements for the Art Society of Kingston, which you guys just approved a few months ago as part of the 2020 allocation. And so, with the public infrastructure projects, we want to be able to pick projects that ideally are in our low to moderate income neighborhoods and would be utilized as a majority of our population. And that is why we receive community development block grant funds. And so for me, we have really tried to focus on Midtown Kingston with our CDBG funds, and you all have supported us in doing that as well. And I think in particular, there are a variety of public infrastructure projects that I believe are going to need CDBG funding to be able to progress, while also reducing the impact to our local taxpayers. Because we've, over the years, not spent down all of our CDBG funding for a variety of reasons. But I think we're here now with this, leadership team that we have in community development to be able to get caught up and be able to, spend our funds on some really important local projects. And so last month, we pitched the concept of helping to fund the Planet Wings project, which is a really important, public infrastructure project that will be open to all and really improve accessibility and safety for, all of our Midtown residents. But I also have other projects that I would like to be able to bring to the Common Council, everything from a new sewer on Prospect Street to potentially helping to support the work on the Elmendorf Street Bridge, and other projects that we haven't even identified yet that could be appropriate for this public infrastructure funds. And so, tonight I'm asking for your support in particular for the Planet Wings Grand Street Broadway intersection, because that is the next project that is really shovel ready. It's being designed as we speak and will be able to go to construction in early 2021. And so we would like to get that project moving. But, our team is working really hard right now to identify this new sewer project on Prospect Street and to bring the costs and to the Common Council. And I think that will be the next project, and the Elmendorf Street Bridge could be the next project. And so I really am just wanting to kind of bring to the committee's attention that, we may want to focus some of our public facilities money that we receive each year toward public facilities that are actually owned and operated by the city of Kingston. And, maybe take a little bit of a break from funding public facilities projects at some of our nonprofits, just because as of right now, we have a pretty important need to meet for our own taxpayers. And I think that this is a really, good opportunity to kind of start to move in that direction. And so, I think that's, and so I also asked Kristen on this evening, in case there were any specific questions that you all thought of over the last month about the Broadway Grand Street project, being that Kristen is the project manager and is helping to bring that project to fruition. So I just wanted to, I guess end there and see, over the last month, what other additional questions there were, or if there's anything else that Kristen or I or Mandy or Amy could help answer at this point.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Just kind of refresh us. How much are you looking for this project?
Sure. So there are really three parts to this project. One is we've gotten cost estimates to remove asbestos that is in the roof tiles of the building, and that we believe, based on the engineer's estimates, of about $35,000. There's about $15,000 of demolition costs. Our Department of Public Works has agreed to, as you know, we talked about this with the Common Council a year plus ago, they've agreed to knock down the building, but we will have costs related to actually disposing of the material itself. We think that that's a little bit of a high estimate, but we wanted to just make sure in case costs went up with trucking and things like that. And so that brings that total for $50,000 for kind of the prep and demolition. And then the second part of the project, which is really the green space, is that as part of the $750,000 grant that we received from Kevin Cahill to redesign the intersection, it's called multimodal funding, and it's allowed to be used to redo the intersection itself, but not to really add any amenities that the neighborhood could use. For instance, an area where it could be a communal gathering space, sidewalks, benches, some trees. And so we've, based on the estimates from GPI, who's done this design for us, they expect that landscaping cost, if you will, at approximately $100,000 to be able to make it a space that is kind of welcoming to Midtown residents, place for a farmer's market, a place so that we can kind of utilize and reactivate that green space, which I think also goes to kind of the economic development potential of supporting this neighborhood, which is the other use of CDBG funds, is to be able to help, the building like across the street, that really has, in the Millard building, that has really tried to be a great place for local businesses, but has struggled over the years to attract people to businesses to Midtown. This could be a way to kind of brighten that corridor and to really make it kind of what we would consider, in the engineering world, using placemaking to kind of make it feel like it's a place that's safe and welcoming to residents in the neighborhood. And so those are the two different projects. So $50,000 for prep and demolition, and then $100,000 to support, what I just talked about.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the mayor? Andrea?
Hi, and this may be a tag team question for both the mayor and Kristen. Last month, we talked about the sewer lines on Prospect, and we're hoping to get estimates, but from DPW, but I don't think we have any hard estimates on how much that would cost. I'm pretty sure Rita was sent the laterals, but not the main, unless I just didn't see it. And then I was also wondering about, Kristen, if you could fill us in on the sewer lines on Broadway and what's happening there.
So
Steve,
for
Prospect?
Yeah, so I think for Prospect, DPW, you're right, DPW hasn't gotten me those quotes yet for the cost. I did ask, as did Rita. So we're waiting on that still. But our general sense is that based on the number of property owners that have, there's kind of two pieces. There's the piece with the private laterals that we would use the CDBG money to help support repairing all of those, and then actually paying for the sewer install itself. Generally, kind of on, the back of a napkin, it could cost as much as $1 million to replace the sewer and all of the laterals on that street for that 2-block section. But we expect that based on the number of failed laterals and the average cost to replace the lateral, that we would probably ask for about $300,000 out of community development to be able to help support, paying for the laterals for, kind of into that project. It would have to be clearly a city bonding to be able to fund the rest of that project. But as of now, when I asked DPW initially, they told me $1 million, but they haven't gotten actual cost estimates from a contractor yet. And Kristen, do you want to give everybody an update on where we are with Broadway?
Can I go before Kristen goes? Because it's off of what you're saying, and so I want to keep it on the topic. So do we know, first one, how much money do we have from the CDBG monies, extra monies do we have right now that are available?
Mandy, do you want to?
Amy, do you want to take that?
Yeah. But generally, they've told us about 600,000, could be reallocated. Is that correct, approximately?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's about 600,000. And then we receive, obviously about 700,000 every year going forward. And so there's also going to be additional future funds. Generally we put, approximately, 150 to 250 each year toward public infrastructure. And so, that's also going forward, funds that could be used for supporting some of these city projects.
Right. Okay. And so I know that Prospect Street, houses would have to be identified where the laterals need repairing, right? And so that would be one of the first steps to do is identify those houses, or have those houses been identified, or have we not really tackled that yet?
So one of the unique things about Prospect, well, not unique, but it's about many of our city streets, is that Prospect Street has such a large number of failing laterals. We could go ahead and replace the ones that failed, which was the original plan. And we've identified those. We know where generally we've identified them. Not all of them, we could have missed a few. But one of the things that we've also identified is that the sewer itself is basically defunct and not working correctly and is failing. And so when in any project, if you were to go and replace the sewer, you also have to replace all of the laterals, whether they're broken or not.
Okay.
We will, if we're going to do a Prospect Street sewer repair, which is needed, all of the laterals, regardless, will have to get fixed and redone. Which is what we do with all of our sewer projects. We just did it with Jacobs Valley and on Pine Grove, and we have to do that. And so that's why, we now don't need to worry so much about whether we don't have to identify individual homeowners anymore if we're going to replace the sewer.
Okay.
You want me to go talk about Broadway? Yes. Okay. So my understanding is that the engineering department has been doing investigation. They've had the sewer camera out on Broadway, figuring out what the problems are. I had a conversation with John Schulteis earlier this week, or maybe it was last week, about putting together an estimate and identifying a consultant to complete the design. So at this point, I don't have any estimates. I think they're still identifying what exactly all of the problems are. But we did discuss going before the council either this coming month, communicating to get onto the finance committee in October, preferably, or if not, then November, to be able to discuss cost estimates related to the Broadway sewer. So I don't really have I don't have a cost for you right now, but we are discussing it and getting ready to develop those cost estimates. And another thing I just wanted to mention, just in case Steve mentioned that I might know about CDBG funding, eligibility or ineligibility. And I just want to mention that I am not an expert on CDBG funding. I have not managed them. But Mandy is your expert. She knows all about the finance and the regulations of CDBG. So if there are any questions regarding, whether a project is eligible to fund or not, I think I always turn to Mandy, and I think that she knows the HUD regulations upside and backside. And so I just wanted to mention that. I don't know. I haven't been into one of these meetings before. I don't know how often folks communicate with Mandy, but I did want to mention that she does know those regulations. And in the past, we have funded, just to back up what the mayor said, we have funded infrastructure projects with CDBG funding, the Cornell Street city-owned infrastructure projects. I mean, the Cornell Street sidewalk project, when we redid the sidewalks along the parking lot on Cornell Street, that was funded partially by CDBG funding. Also, the parklet was partially funded. The Hasbrook Delaware parklet was partially funded by CDBG funding.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. Anybody else have questions?
Rita has her hand up.
Rita, do you have a question? Okay, Rita.
I don't know if it's a question, I have a comment. So I'm really happy that the CDBG fund monies can be used for the infrastructure. It just seems to me though that, Mayor, even by, your own words, the sewer system and sewer lines are failing. And Broadway, we have an issue on Broadway. We have an issue on Prospect Street. It just seems to me that it just makes more sense for these monies to go toward the sewer lines and to fix our infrastructure. That's my personal opinion. I'm going to be in favor of Prospect Street because I live on Prospect Street. But at the same time, if the city sewer lines are failing, by your own admission, why wouldn't we fix them if we had the monies to do so?
I think, I guess, to answer that question/statement is that, I think that what we do and what you guys do each year with the community development block grant allocation is that, we try to spread the money around to be able to benefit the most number of Kingston residents with the amount of funds that we get from HUD. And so we have tens of millions of dollars. I could even say the word $1 billion, right, worth of sewer projects that we need to do in the city. And I would hate to never allocate another dollar of BG funds because we're sinking it all into our sewer system. I think that, there can be a mix, though, of municipal bonding, grants, and CDBG funds to be able to help, kind of make ends meet. And I think that that's kind of our goal, here tonight is that, we have a big grant to be able to help with Planet Wings. We have, we're still going to have to come to the city to ask for additional funds to help support that project. And we also can get some community development block grant funds to help support it. And the same thing with our sewer projects. There's no way that CDBG can support the entire Prospect Street sewer project. We don't have enough money to just fix Prospect Street, and we would have to use all of our funds that we have, and it still wouldn't be enough. And so I think one of the things that is what we could do, though, is say that community development is helping to be able to reduce the tax burden, reduce the amount of bonding that we have to do, but it's not going to make it go away completely. And so I think that the process that you guys have taken already has been to basically, help support projects that just kind of need to get over the finish line. And I think that whether it's, for instance, with this project with Planet Wings to kind of help us have, a nice green space at the end and to help take care of the asbestos and the construction, with Prospect Street, it's helping to take $1 million project and actually turn it into a $700,000 or $600,000 bond, which really reduces it. If we were to help fund the Elmendorf Street project, we could spend $1 million to fix that bridge, but CDBG could pay for the design and engineering that the council, is going to about ready to spend $75,000 on. That could be something that CDBG could pay for, so that the council doesn't have to pay for the engineering and design. The council is just going to go ahead and bond for the actual capital and costs of it. And so there's benefits to that in terms of the long-term ability to bond different projects. When you're just doing design and engineering, you can only bond it for a certain number of years. If you're doing capital construction, you can bond it over the life of that project. And so there are some benefits to kind of feeding in CDBG money when possible. And it also shows the federal government that, we are also being diverse in our allocation. And that we're spreading it kind of around our LMI community. So not just all in one section of Midtown, but it's in different sections of Midtown and also downtown. And so that's why I think I would be hesitant to kind of just put it all into one bucket each year. And that's just my response to that for what it's worth.
Yeah, I understand completely what you're saying. I just want some of those monies to be spread around on some of the streets in Midtown other than Henry Street and Franklin Street. And we've been waiting for a long time for something to happen up on Prospect Street and Van Buren Street, and we haven't seen it. So, I'm all for that happening. And to be honest with you, Mayor, I'm a little leery of, because we say it's going to get done. I'm a little leery about it getting done because I haven't seen anything in such a long time. That's where I am with it. And that's just the truth.
Andrea?
Yeah, I completely agree with Rita. I think it's kind of premature. I consider the Planet Wings as much as I would like to see that looking is usable for Midtown. I see it more as a vanity project, at least more so than the sewer lines. I mean, I really hope that that is taken care of, but just on Andrew Street, also in Midtown, they just tore, Central Hudson just did work on it and DPW was going to pave it, but they can't because the sewer lines are all messed up and there's two sections that the sewer line is completely crushed. They can't even get the camera down to look at. We're talking about Broadway. I mean, to redo the sewer lines on Broadway, we're talking millions of dollars. So I think we all recognize that these monies won't put a dent in the sewer lines project, but I think it's kind of premature to say let's put money to the Planet Wings project before we know a plan for the sewers. It's going to be, years and years of fixing sewer lines. And we have to start today, well, as soon as possible to get these done.
Kristen?
So with regards to the Broadway sewer projects, as I mentioned, I think the plan with the engineering department is to come before the council, the finance committee in October with some estimates. And I think our goal is to fix the Broadway sewers before the Broadway streetscape project is done. So as far as that project is concerned, our hope is that it would not be years and years, because if we do that, then the Broadway streets, we will have invested $8 million.
Kristen, I'm not talking about Broadway taking years and years. I'm talking about all the sewers throughout the city that needs to be fixed, not just specifically Broadway. So just wanted to let you know before you.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify about Broadway and the timeline for Broadway. Our goal is to get that done before the streetscape is done, because we don't want to go and dig up our $8 million streetscape, to fix sewers after the fact. And unfortunately, the sewer issues did not present themselves until the last year. And so through the entire design process, the consistent message to our consultants from many different city employees over the time was that the sewers were in okay condition until the last year when problems began to present themselves. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then as far as the Grand Street project is concerned, the asbestos removal and the removal of the building must happen before the construction or the reconstruction of the intersection can happen. And so that portion of the request, which Steve, maybe you can reiterate the numbers, is the rest of the project hinges on it. And so we cannot complete the intersection construction without doing those things, because those things have to be out of the way before we can utilize the rest of the monies. And we can't really utilize the grant monies on the removal of the building. And also, if we do, the costs of removing the building would probably increase by 3 times, because we would have to put it through the state contracting and bid process, which just automatically increases the cost. So the intersection project, in my view, is not a vanity project. It's a safety issue. And if we don't complete the intersection project, we're going to have a weird end to the Broadway streetscape project. And that weird end could, if we don't complete the rest of it, could, lead to more crashes, or just more crashes may happen because of the way that the intersection is designed right now. So in my view, the asbestos removal and the removal of the building is absolutely essential if we want to see that intersection reconfigured. That's all I had to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Krista. Rennie?
Rita, if you want to speak directly to those issues, please go ahead. I'm going to bring up something altogether different.
Yeah, as Kristen said that estimates, we should be getting estimates soon on the Broadway project. I'd like to get some estimates on the sewer work up in Midtown as well. At least that will give me a little bit of clarity and maybe put me on board with some of these other projects if I know something truly is happening with those sewer lines. We're waiting on estimates. I've asked for estimates. The mayor, you've asked for estimates, and we haven't gotten anything yet. So I would love to see if we can get some estimates at the time that we're getting estimates for everything else.
Okay. Randy, did you want to speak?
Yes.
Right.
The drift of this conversation has been completely about infrastructure projects, but I'm concerned about what's going to happen when these eviction moratoriums are lifted, and we're going to have, I fear, a large number of people who are facing eviction. So I'm wondering if there's a way we can use some of this money to develop a fund that would make it possible for people to stay in their homes when we are looking at this potential catastrophe down the line somewhere.
Mayor?
I agree that, as of now, I think the council has already allocated about $150,000 toward eviction prevention with direct dollars, not including the $70,000 to the legal services of the Hudson Valley to prevent evictions from happening. And I don't know what this would be in the new business portion of the meeting, but the other portion of what I was here to talk about tonight is that 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, the city received notice that we were getting an additional allocation of CDBG coronavirus aid, just over $256,000 of additional that we need to talk about how we're going to allocate. And so, I think a big portion of that, it could go toward, again, additional eviction prevention. And that aid specifically, like the other CV aid that we just allocated, needs to be specifically related to coronavirus. And so we're very limited. We cannot use that money on infrastructure. That money can only be used for supporting, economic development opportunities for businesses that were harmed by coronavirus, food, housing. And so that, again, is new money that we still need to talk about how to allocate. And I'd like to do that tonight as well. Once we get through this old business, if we can have that as the kind of the new business for tonight.
So could I just clarify, that's $250-something thousand on top of the $600,000 figure you gave us earlier?
Yeah. So there is, we received the 400 and some thousand for CVA that we just allocated. We then have now this new 250 some thousand that is on top of all of the other funds that we have in CDBG that has been that have not been spent yet from years 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, which is that 600,000. Yes.
All right, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have questions, comments? Mayor?
So just, if we're going to try to move this forward, one suggestion that I would have is that if, as Kristen mentioned, the asbestos removal and the demolition was something that was already budgeted as part of the 2019 general budget. DPW didn't get to it in time to be able to use that funds, and it wasn't encumbranced. So that went back into the general fund. And so that 50,000 ish that we need, that I'm asking for tonight, could I potentially amend my committee report or whatever to basically indicate that I'd be asking for, and that if in the future we decide to come back to the council for additional funds for, the rest of the improvements to the site, I could do that at a later time once we have all of the sewer projects worked out and we have a better understanding of, what's going to be needed on Prospect Street and whatnot. And so, I'd be willing to kind of amend my request to be able to ask for what is needed at this moment, which is to be able to get rid of the Planet Wings building so that we can move forward with this $750,000, grant that we have.
Okay. To me, it seems the only thing we can accomplish here tonight is the business about the Planet Wings and the intersection. That's about the only thing we really have concrete figures on. We're still waiting for estimates for anything else that's been under discussion. As the mayor said, the new 256 may, that's, obvious. So, we'll have that to work on in the immediate future. So I guess, how does everybody feel? Let's discuss this 150,000. Do we want to do this? Do we want to not do it? Do we need more information? Rennie, go ahead, and then Andrea.
I agree with that idea that we've got a specific figure for Planet Wings. I do think that it's necessary for that to be part of the larger Broadway streetscape project, and so I think putting some money toward that is essential. That's going to really improve Midtown in a lot of different ways. But I also think that we need to find a way, because I totally agree with Rita, we have to find a way to be very specific that, a vast percentage of the rest of this money is going to go to those particular projects on Prospect Street and in that specific neighborhood.
Andrea, then Jeffrey.
Yeah, so I just sent a message to Ed Norman, and he said he did reach out to the engineers and is waiting on costs for them, so it should still be coming. So I would still advocate to wait for numbers. I would still like to see as much of money go towards fixing sewer lines as possible.
Okay, Jeffrey?
I agree with
And
that.
Rennie?
Yes, I
Jeff
agree
first.
with that. I think it's premature to allocate without having the estimates for everything. I'm in favor of the sewers, especially Prospect. If it's going to cost $1 million and we have 600, that's less money that would come from the budget. So, until we have that estimate, I'm uncomfortable allocating to anything else.
I'm sorry, actually, everybody froze. I didn't hear anything you said, Jeffrey. Sorry. Could you repeat, Jeffrey?
Yes, I said I'd rather wait for the estimates before we allocate anything. If we have a limited amount of money, I'm in favor of most of it, if not all of it, going to the sewer, especially on Prospect. So I would rather wait for that estimate before we make any decision.
Okay. Does that include the decision on Planet Wings? Or are you separating the two?
Well, I think we only have one pool of money, so yes, that includes everything.
Okay, so you would rather hold off until we get everything in. You broke up again there, so you would rather not make a decision on the Planet Wings also until everything is in?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, Rennie?
Oh, I thought
Randy, go ahead.
I thought Jeffrey said he wants to spend all the money on wings. Never mind. So I'm wondering if because we know that the sewer project is going to be a higher amount than what we've got in the funds here, we could go ahead and allocate the money, right? I mean, we don't have to have the final estimate. We're pretty clear that the full cost of that project is going to be higher than what we've got. So that would allow us to allocate money, and that would satisfy my concern about making sure that we're saying, that the bulk of the money is going to the sewer project, to fixing the area there around Prospect Street, while also putting some of that money to the Planet Wings project so that we can make sure that that proceeds apace and doesn't undermine the Broadway Streetscape project.
Okay. Amy, go ahead. Unmute.
Yeah, I
There you
tried. I do want to say that there is an issue called timeliness, and that is that we can be penalized for having more than 1.5 times our annual allocation. And we could be at risk for losing money. We've been warned before. So depending upon the timeline of the sewer project, we will be, there's going to be another round of CDBG funding for 2021, beginning July 1 of the next fiscal year. So the sewer project sounds like it's going to be a protracted project. And if it's not going to start anytime soon, I think that the timeline for Planet Wings, it's not a lot of money. It will help a little, but, Mandy can attest, as can the mayor, that we've gotten letters from HUD saying we really need to spend our money. So 50,000 isn't a lot to reduce it, but it will help and it will show that we are making an effort. I just need you to know that there's this timeliness problem.
Okay, Rita, and then Kristen.
So, while I would like to see all of the monies used for the sewer lines, in a spirit of compromise, I would, side with what Rennie is saying. If we knew for sure that the bulk of this money, that the monies that we have right now will be dedicated to the sewer lines, with the 50,000 going to Planet Wings, I would be in favor of that. My problem is that I'm not entirely sure that's what's going to happen. And so that's why I'm on, I'm on the fence with this. It's almost, I know that I probably should not ask for a guarantee, but in essence, that's what I'm doing. I'm asking for a guarantee that the bulk of that money will be used for what you said it was going to be used for when it comes to sewer line and lateral work on Prospect Street. And at this point, I feel like if I don't get that, I'm not in favor of the Planet Wings thing.
And sorry, this is Steve. Just to
Okay.
respond, Rita, is just the way the CDBG funds, are allocated, is that the Common Council gets to decide. And so you guys can put in these project buckets how you would like to see the money spent. And that then, and if we were to make a change, we would have to come back to you and say, we couldn't spend it on the sewer project. We want to spend it on a road project. And you would have to agree to allow us to move the monies from sewer to the road. And so I think that if today you guys were to say we've got this 600,000, and you were to say, put 50,000 toward the Planet Wings project that's going to happen this fall, and the other 500,000 or whatever, to sewer projects, in Midtown, or however you want to phrase it, that is enough for Mandy and Amy to kind of set up the buckets with HUD in the HUD accounting system, so that when you guys do your annual allocations, how we kind of break up and it says like, the Art Society of Kingston gets this, it would then say city sewer projects in Midtown, and it gets this amount. And then forever, it's allocated for that amount forever, unless we come back to the council and the council members decide to change that allocation to something else. And so that's, kind of the protection that you get, especially with CDBG funds, is that it is a very cumbersome process to move the funds around. And that's, why we're here tonight. If I could go ahead and just be like, oh, we've got all of the CDBG money and I could just spend it on my own, that's not how the process works. And so it has to be a mayor, common council, public hearing process, full council vote in order to actually allocate that funds and or to unallocate those funds. It also has to happen through this process.
Okay. Any other comments about this? Renee, are you raising your hand or just waving at me? Kristen?
Sorry, trying to raise my hand and it was outside of the screen. I just wanted to clarify with the mayor. So would the request for, I think the original request for the Planet Wings project was 150, right? To include landscaping. So if we take out the landscaping, then what would the request be?
50 at this point.
1,000 for the asbestos removal and for the DPW to do all of the rest of the work to demolish the building. Okay.
And so this is a question for my staff, Mandy and Amy. At this point, would you feel comfortable, if we were to do a $50,000 allocation, that we could do a $500,000 allocation to sewer work in Midtown and be comfortable that we have those dollars available to allocate if we were to say make that motion tonight? I know when I said 600 before, you kind of gave me that's about right. But I mean, would you feel more comfortable at this point with 500 because that's what we have in the bank for tonight's purposes? What would be the number that you would feel comfortable with at this point?
Myself is going to kind of depend. I have to see what Arlene's got going on because it's some of the housing money that we're moving because it's housing money that hasn't been used. And I need to make sure that she's not, that she doesn't have so many people in the, I'm going to say in the hopper that we're not going to be able to help them. I think she's got about, I don't know if she can get them all done. She's got somewhere around $460,000 worth of housing that needs to be done, which might be a little ambitious. I don't know, how much she can actually get done for this year. But like Amy said, when we have a timeliness thing, if we can't meet it, then how do we take the money back? But each year, you get money and you can say that, like normally you guys say that every year you're giving $250,000 to rehab. You can go forward and say you're lessening that amount, but you're guaranteeing that each year you're putting so much money into sewer projects. I'm still working on the numbers. We have some issues, but you could certainly move at least 500,000.
Mandy, was that 500,000 total or 550? Meaning 50,000 for Planet Wings and 500 for sewer.
I'm pretty sure we could come up with the 550, but I wouldn't go more than that with a guarantee. Just until we're 100% sure. You can always up the ante. But the other thing is, like I've said, as far as Arlene is concerned, only because she went from having only a couple of people where she's got like $460,000 worth of housing rehab that she wants to get done. So I just need to make sure that she can actually get that done. And if she can't, then that's money that we have to reallocate too. Part of the problem is that every year when you guys give money, not everybody gets their projects done. or the projects sit. So that's kind of the money that we are pulling back that needs to be reallocated because it hasn't been spent. Does it make sense? Yes, no?
Okay, all right. What's the feelings on this? 550,000. How's everybody feel about that?
I mean,
You wanna venture an opinion?
is Mandy sure that, we can pull those monies out? Or should we wait for her to bring those numbers back to us? If she's pretty sure about, we can do that, I'm in favor of that.
I am.
Okay. Mandy, are you willing to make a commitment to that, or do you want to do a little more research, or are you comfortable with that, to put that out there, or would you rather wait till you've had a chance to look at things a little more closely? How do you feel about it?
I'm comfortable saying that. Yes. The 550.
Okay. All right. Does that change anybody's mind? Or do anything for your opinion? I mean, so Mandy's quite sure 550,000 would be okay. How's everybody feeling about that? All right, we got one thumbs up. All right, two. Does somebody want to make a motion that we allocate 550? Rennie's making a motion. Any second?
Wait a minute, wait, Steve, before we put that motion on the floor. So when we say, I just need to be clear on what we're doing. When we say we're allocating those monies towards sewer line, are we talking about sewer lines all over the city, or are we talking about a specific area? Because it can be ambiguous, and I don't want to, I need to be clear.
Well, somebody can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding would be, when this money is spent, it would go to the council or to us for approval on how it is spent. So we would have the final say. We would get a recommendation that X amount of dollars be spent here and X there. That would be our final decision to say yes or no on that. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Kristen?
Yeah, I'm not comfortable
Kristen
with that.
and then Matt.
I'm not comfortable with that.
I was just going
Kristen?
to say, Mandy, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the CDBG fundings can only be spent in certain areas, so which include Midtown and other low-income areas of the city, right?
Yeah, CDBG funds are mostly for LMI. There are some areas within the city of Kingston, as long as there's 51% of the population within that area that's LMI, that they are also qualified. It's eligible is the word I was looking for.
I'm wondering if you can designate the funds in this resolution. Is it possible to say sewers in Midtown?
You can allocate it that way. Yes. If you specifically say that it's for sewers in Midtown, and then Lucas Avenue has another problem, you can't take those monies. Once you designate it for Midtown, you can't take those monies without going through a huge process again and just move them over so that Lucas Avenue can have something, or that something down on downtown. If you are designating it, that's where it has to be used.
Okay, but final approval would still be with us. I mean, nobody can just take that money and use it up on Lucas Avenue, as you said.
Right.
We would
There's-
have to approve that.
Yes, there's a certain percentage that can't be moved without going through the public comment period and a public hearing. And that's a lot of money. So you can't just move it and say, okay, we're gonna take this money and we're gonna use it over here. You have to go through the whole process, just like you do when you do the CDBG allocations.
So we're still in charge of the vault, shall we say? I mean, it'll be our decision. Somebody asks for the money, we can say no. Anyone else? Does that make you feel better, Rita?
I'm thinking.
That's what it's all about.
Are you going to think long enough for me to get a glass of water?
No. Oh my God. Come on. I don't know how long.
So can I ask how the resolution would read? Should we go forward with this?
Now, is this actually considered a resolution?
Is it, or is it, are
I'm
we
not
just
even quite
making a,
sure. Yeah. I don't think this requires a resolution, does it?
okay.
Does anyone know? Mayor?
My sense is that similar to how you approve the allocations for the CDBG process, you would have a committee report that would basically indicate that the CDBG is endorsing reallocating unspent CDBG funds toward, the Grand Street Pine Grove intersection in the amount of $50,000 and toward sewer improvement projects in Midtown Kingston. And if you want to, you could even define those two census tracts that make Midtown qualified to be a CDBG community, both basically Broadway on the west side and Broadway on the east side in Midtown. I mean, or you could designate just one census tract, or you could, if you wanted to be even more specific, or you could just say projects in Midtown. Obviously, all of these projects are going to be large that CDBG is not going to be able to pay for it themselves. And so all of these sewer projects are going to end up in front of the Finance Committee of the Common Council for bonding, because none of them are going to be able to be directly paid for with the money that we're allocating today.
Hey, Rennie?
It says question for Amy or Mandy. Is designating the money as good as spending it, or is it does it have to be literally spent in order to satisfy the HUD requirements?
Gotta spend it.
Has to be spent.
So do we have a sense of, that would suggest we need to have a pretty clear sense of some kind of timing for addressing the sewer issues along Prospect Street.
Is there a timeline?
So this is Steve. So my understanding when talking originally to the Public Works Department about this project, and is that some design work was already done at the intersection of Prospect and Henry and Prospect and Greenkill, and so we would be basically connecting those two already designed projects along those two blocks of Prospect. And so from a design perspective, the design perspective would only take a couple of months. And so I would expect, as long as the council move forward with bonding for the overall project, because it will far exceed the 500,000, this could be a 2021 build for the sewer project.
This is Cassandra. Darcy, am I allowed to comment?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm just making sure I understand everything. I know you guys get the final say and everything, but I'm just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. Because prior to Rita mentioning about not only the area and Prospect, but all the other areas in that she had mentioned that work wasn't getting done in over the years, all of a sudden this $500,000 is now renegotiable. So at first it was this, you were talking about because I know there's 3 projects that need immediate attention. And what's going to happen, I'm agreeing with Amy, like she said, it'd mess up the HUD money if you have too much allocated and not used or whatever. So how come there can't be just get the original thing done that Steve had mentioned, even though I know it might seem like we're doing cosmetic work more than something that really needs to be done, like the sewer. But the problem is, right now, at least there's enough money to complete that, even though we know there's other projects. At least something is going to be completed. And then, because then once you're going to take the $500,000 that was supposed to go to other things, it's like now you're taking from this area to fix this, because now that's being brought more to attention tonight of more importance, hearing about that area. So, because once the sewer project starts, and you start opening up things, there's going to be a lot more money. That $500,000 may seem like nothing once you start getting into that. So, why can it be where the Planet Wings project is done, and then with new money, even though it may take to next year to get the sewers done properly, rather than taking money from an area, because now we have to show attention to this matter because it was brought up tonight specifically. You're now taking from another area, the rehab projects, and a lot of, sometimes people don't know that that's going to, be affected now, that's not on this meeting tonight. Am I making sense what I'm saying?
Yep, Sonny, I hear you. But the sewer projects, tonight was not the first night that it's been brought up. The mayor.
I know, but I know it was not the first night it was brought up, but I'm talking about now. You weren't talking about using this $500,000 now, until you said something. Now all of a sudden that money, that's unless I'm misunderstanding it. I know it's not the first it's brought up. I'm talking about for tonight's conversation.
Well, I think tonight is the first time that we've heard that we can do that. So in last meeting,
that's what I'm talking.
Yeah, we didn't know that last meeting. So
so I'm just wondering why that, because now it's like, you're right. This is more important than this project, even though you don't want to now leave an eyesore on Broadway while you're fixing the more important project. Then there's going to be too many projects that's open.
I don't know how to answer that. I know that, what my constituents have been asking for in Ward 4 for many years. And so that's where my loyalties lie.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm agreeing with you. So I'm saying now that there's going to be money that's going to be taken from another area to. But
it's not really being taken from another area, though. It's not being taken.
Well, that's what I was saying. I didn't understand.
Yeah, that's why we're here. From we're here tonight to decide how we're going to use those monies. It's not being taken from another area.
Oh, okay. That's what I was wondering. When they was talking about the $500,000, I was thinking they were saying because it wasn't being used, and now you could use that money. So that's what I was saying. I didn't understand that part.
Well, yeah.
So do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. Certainly.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding. Go ahead. I'm just listening.
So
Okay.
I know that the
Somebody
sewer
have a
line.
hand up?
I know that the project is going to run more than $500,000, but the same way that we use money to start other projects, can this project at least be started? Or are you saying to me that we cannot start it because we don't have the entire amount to do the work?
We just
I guess
are
that
doing
question is
the,
for
Yeah, the Elmendorf Street Bridge, we just spent money to get the design work before we're actually spending money on the actual construction. So I'd imagine the same thing is here. The process, I think the next steps that have to be taken are the engineer is supposed to get back to DPW soon. And then the engineer will have to do the design work. So I would imagine that that's going to cost money. So I would think that it could be the same idea that we just did for Elmendorf, the Elmendorf Bridge. Makes sense to me. So at least the project gets moving.
Okay, Amy?
Mandy,
Go ahead, Amy.
can you confirm that the last time I don't know, it was several months ago that there was a report that we were at risk of a clawback of like $360,000. Am I hallucinating? So I'm strenuously really telling you guys that our probably too frequent contact with him is telling us that by the end of, our fiscal year is July 1 through June 30th. And when we get our allotment for 2021, it's predicted that we will have probably close to $2 million because we get 700,000. And these COVID funds, are part of it as well. So
we have until July then, or June to pay down some of this or to spend down some of this. So
they want to see progress.
I don't think we should put off the sewers because it sounds like we could actually get this going, and we shouldn't just spend. I mean, it's not like it's happening in a month.
So when what is the timeline for the sewers? Don't we have to bond, what's the process? I have no idea what it would take to start the sewers on Prospect.
Engineer will have to do design work.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor, you want to field that?
Yeah. So just to, kind of clarify again, like what I said before, is that generally, if we allocate funding toward the project in Midtown related to sewers, and we then go and our DPW gets an estimate back from the engineer that it's going to cost $25,000 to design the sewer on those two blocks. Instead of coming to the finance committee of the Common Council to ask for money, because you will have set this pool of infrastructure money available or sewer money for Midtown available, DPW will then be able to have access to just spend that money to hire the engineer, which will actually quicken the process so that we then don't have to go to finance to ask for money and have that kind of delay. And so by setting this pool of funds available, we could potentially, as President Schott said, we would be able to start spending some of this money soon on design. And then when we get to construction, the construction part of this won't be spent by June of next year, most likely. Even if the project starts in the spring, we won't be paying the bills until later next year for it. But there are other, depending on what Mandy comes back with in terms of our final numbers, similar to like the Elmendorf Street Bridge, that $75,000 that the council allocated, last month, we haven't spent that yet. You allocated it, but we haven't spent it. And so if we actually wanted to spend down some CDBG money, you guys could tonight allocate $75,000 to do the design and engineering on the Elmendorf Street Bridge. And that literally could be spent down in the next month and a half, which would help with our timeliness and would also help reduce the amount of that bond that you authorized. And so that we wouldn't then have to go out for that. So that's the kind of thing that I want to be able to do with CDBG. And I'm not saying we have to do that with that project in particular, but I think just in general, we want to be able to have more of an open dialogue with the council, kind of outside of the finance committee about trying to also fund some of these projects kind of from the start. And I agree that creating this fund for sewers in Midtown is a good way, because tomorrow we could have a failure on another street in Midtown. It could be Greenfield Avenue that could fail tomorrow. And, you know, all of this funding accessibility will only help DPW and the city engineer be able to do their jobs better, because they could go ahead and start the process of getting this work done. So again, we can't give you an exact timeline of when this will be done next year, but it would be something that could be done next year, because if not, there's not going to be much left to Prospect Street, because everything is sinking. So like, we really do have to get it done.
Are you talking the entire length of the street, or you said something about two blocks?
It's just 2 blocks, from
And
Greenfield to
how many
Henry.
houses are on those 2 blocks?
How many what?
How many houses, give or take, ballpark, are on those 2 blocks?
I think we counted about 30 laterals, maybe 30 to 35 laterals
So
on this.
typically about 10,000, give or take, per
Yeah.
lateral. That's what it's cost for the LSLRP funding.
Yeah. And so you add that with the actual cost of ripping out the line and putting a new line in, ballpark, we got to $1 million. It could be a little less, it could be a little more. You know, it's not deep. So it's not really deep. So that's better news. It's not as deep as Henry Street or some of the other, but it's still like, these are all very expensive projects regardless.
So 500,000 is not an unreasonable estimate. Well, if you have, how many houses did you say? 30 to 35 houses, 10,000 each, that's 350,000. How much for design? 50,000?
You're in the
Kristen?
ballpark.
Mandy, I just had a question about, to meet our timeliness goals, if, I guess to sort of use New York State DOT language, if we obligate the funding to a project, so let's say we put out a bid for Prospect Street in the winter and it starts in March, we're, still haven't spent all the funds for CDBG or for HUD, does that count towards our timeliness goals?
It has to be spent. It has to be spent.
So,
because we've had money earmarked all along for certain projects, housing rehab. It's all earmarked and allocated, it just isn't spent. So we're sitting on this money. And
Okay.
their philosophy is, if you haven't spent it, you must not need it.
Okay. So then my question is, if we allocate this money and we start spending the money on design or what have you, will we be okay? Or do we have to have the entire amount spent by a certain time?
I don't know, Mandy, do you think if we showed good faith effort that we're working to reduce it? I think so.
We need to spend as much as we can.
Yes.
by July 30th or by July 1st?
By June 30th.
June 30th.
But actually, Mandy, don't they do the timeliness test May 3rd? That's right.
The problem is we're 3 years late on timeliness. But we didn't know. But
And
we
the
know-
timeliness test is early May. So it's
Yeah.
even before June 30th. We should all have this problem that we have to spend money.
But it's not the entire $500,000 that has to be spent by then, right? Wouldn't it be? It should be a portion of it that was in the
It's-
3 year ago budget.
It's 1.5 times our annual allotment, which is approximately 700,000. So it's 1 point whatever million. And I don't know how much we have. But James was telling us that, we're likely to get another 700,000 for 2021. And that will put us.
But that won't be considered. That won't be considered in the lump sum.
Well,
And And isn't the housing, all that 400 some that Arlene is working on for the housing, doesn't this also, part of it is paying down or
No, because it's
paying
going to-
down? Spending the money?
because it's going to take her a very long time to spend it. That's what got us in this problem in the first place, is housing rehab. James has told us that is the slowest money to spend. It takes a really long time. So, and we've allotted 250,000 a year. The max is that you can spend is 25,000 per house. So that's 10 houses a year. And she has, how many does she have now, Mandy?
I think she has 16 on her list.
So it's going to be a while to spend that money. So that really could affect our timeliness in early May. So now, we do have 232 Elmendorf that we need to sell. And that would be some money in the coffers.
Any further discussion? I'd like to move this along here, one way or the other. So if we have some further discussion, let's do it now. It would seem to me we're kind of killing several birds with one stone. I mean, if we use this money, it'll help our timeliness issue. It'll go toward
Am I the only one not hearing Steve, or is?
No, I just sent Steve a message.
No, I don't hear him at all.
Yeah, his computer does this.
So I'm like Steve, I want to move on. I'm hard pressed to believe, though, if we allocate this money toward the sewer lines, that we're not going to spend it. We know we have to spend it, so then, let's do it. Let's do the design and whatever else might come up after that. Why can't we just do it? Or am I being naive about something?
No, I'm with you, Rita. I think we just plan on making it happen. And I mean, what's the point of just sitting back and saying, well, maybe it can't happen in 8 months or whatever, so let's just not do it? Then it's never going to get done.
Exactly. And that's why we're in the problem. We have the problems that we have now.
Right.
But can the mayor commit to that then, to spending that money in the next 8 months on the sewer project?
Okay. I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay. Sorry about it. I still don't know what happens. Anyway, as I started saying and was cut off, I mean, the 550 seems to me to be a pretty good compromise. It's going to go towards, a couple different projects. It will help with the community development timeliness issue. Have a little in the bank, as the mayor says, that, perhaps we can use that instead of him coming to council, quite as frequently looking for money. And let's face it, we don't have enough money to bankroll even one of these projects in total. So, this is just to help out some projects. We have a lot of projects. Certainly the sewers are going to need all the help. This is going to be huge. any help we can give, I think it's a good idea. I mean, I like the idea of using this, for those kind of projects. I think this is, as I said, a good compromise from where we started the evening. I do have a question. Maybe Andrea, you've encountered this. I haven't been at a meeting where we've passed a resolution without a committee report, and I'm not sure how we do that now.
Steve, you could write, or you could
We do have-
speak what is going. Yeah, you could speak what's going to be on the committee report. This meeting is recorded, so it will be there. And then we could work on it tomorrow and actually get the hard copy. So if you say exactly what is going to be on the committee report, we could make this happen. Did anybody hear me, or is Steve frozen again? Okay. But now that Steve is frozen again, Steve Noble, don't go away, please, Mayor. Can you answer Rennie's question before Steve Shabbat came back? Can we guarantee that the ball will start rolling, or can you guarantee the ball will start rolling on prospects?
I can tell you that my staff will continue to work on it, and we'll continue to roll the ball, because I think they did already start rolling the ball. And I don't believe that this project will help us, meet the May whatever timeliness issue. But I do think that hopefully COVID will buy us a year, and that even if we don't meet timeliness in May of 2021, I think that, we will hopefully be able to show progress. I don't think that this project will help us get below our timeliness number by May, because I think we'll be, going into construction at that point, and we won't have paid any of the big bills yet. But I think it's a start in the right direction. And I know that we'll make sure that our DPW superintendent prioritizes this work.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. So I lost everybody again. So in the middle of your explaining how we do this without a committee report, Andrea.
Yeah, so all you have to do is speak on record right here in the meeting what you want on the committee report. The committee will hear it, be able to vote on it, and then tomorrow we could get it on a actual report and send it out.
Okay.
We've
All right.
done this before.
Now we're going to backtrack. Okay. There was a motion made by Rennie to allocate the $550,000, and you heard what Andrea said. Tomorrow we'll customize. You'll see it before you sign it. Pretty much.
Well, you need
the
to,
allocated
Steve, you
fund-
need to speak it. Steve, you need to
Okay.
speak it on record here. So exactly
Okay.
what you
So the
wanted.
funds- Okay. So the $550,000, there's a motion on the floor to allocate $550,000 from community development block grant funds that will be used towards sewer repair in Midtown and the demolition of Planet Wings. I don't know, is that specific enough?
I think it's best if we say 50,000 to the demolition of Planet Wings. And then 500.
50,000 towards Planet Wings, right? And 500 sewer repair.
Does sewer repair include design and engineering? Do you want it to?
Yeah, I don't think we
I don't-
want to Do we want to get that
Yes.
specific
Yeah, that
about
I
it?
think we need to say that. Yes. Yes, because that's what part of
Okay.
the monies will be used for.
Which,
Right. So,
okay, which will include. Okay. So including design work on sewer repair. Okay, Rennie made a motion earlier. Was you, Rennie, right? I can't remember back so long ago. I think it was yesterday. So Rennie made the motion. Was there a second? Did somebody second it? Does somebody want to second it?
I'll second it, Steve.
Rita is
Rita
seconding.
seconding.
Okay. Rita second. Rennie made a motion. Rita second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Motion carried.
Rennie, are you subbing for Dawn or Doug? We'll say you're Doug tonight.
What?
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for their patience here. All right, I think that concludes our unfinished business, right? Amy, can you hear me?
yes,
Go ahead, Amy.
do you want me to type up the committee report for you?
I would love that, yes. All right.
Amy, can you send that to me when you're done with it, please, so that I can
Yeah.
send it out?
And it may need some quick tweaking. You know, my minutes are a little vague here. I have 50K for, yes,
Amy, you want to just give me a call in the morning and we could chat it through and then,
all right. That'll help me with my minutes too, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I believe that's all the unfinished business we have, right?
Yeah,
That's it, right?
yes.
Okay. Now my agenda does not include any new business. I don't know if there is does anybody have an agenda with new business on it?
no, I haven't received anything, Steve.
Okay, Mayor?
So what I mentioned before, related to our recent announcement of the city receiving the 250,000, there's nothing yet for me to be able to forward to you to actually have as an official agenda item as to the amendment process. But I wanted to, if I could, get the feel and consensus of the board on how to proceed. So generally, when we get a CDBG allocation, like we did this last time with the coronavirus aid, we did a application call. We did a call for applications. I reviewed all of those applications. I made recommendations to the Common Council. You guys amended, changed, and then approved a kind of a final plan. And so there are kind of two ways for us to go about this, I think, at least from my perspective. Maybe there's more, but one is for me to take all of the applications that we received the first time and give them all a second look, see if there are any that, that I would suggest funding, maybe some that I suggest funding more, and then resubmitting kind of the next phase of the funding based on those first 40 applications that we received. Or, would the committee prefer to have us do a brand new call for proposals, starting from scratch all over again, for this most recent 256,000. I think out of the 40 applications, we ended up funding 8 or 9. So there could be enough there for us to relook at. And there could also be current, folks we awarded out of the 400 and some that we want to fund more. But I just didn't know if I wanted to get the kind of the gauge of the committee before we went one way or the other, because regardless, it's going to end up back to your committee. And so I'd like to kind of get the sense of the committee before we proceed through some sort of bureaucratic process.
All right. Jeffrey, then Andrea.
I think we pretty much, the criteria that we set forward for ourselves was to respond to only the applications that were as a result of COVID, dealing with housing and food. And I think we funded most of those already. So I'd be in favor of having another round of applications so that we can focus on those criteria, or more specifically on housing, as Rennie mentioned, or maybe just reallocate the bulk of it to the ones addressing those issues. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming here. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with Jeffrey. We kind of set our own principles of how this was going to be spent, but I'm also wondering if we could kind of compromise. Instead of saying whole brand new, we could say we'll take those applications that are already there for those who weren't funded. We could keep those for those who were funded and they need more. They could either just say same or fill out a new application, but give folks a chance to do this again, especially going into the winter months. And, it looks like we're going to be indoors for a while, isolated. So I would definitely be for either whole new application or a compromise of you can just say, use our old application, but giving people a chance to reapply.
I just want to say here,
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's probably still people in the community who are still unaware that was even available. And, there might be some other people out there with some worthwhile ideas or expenses that they put out. Yeah, I'd like to see, a new application process. What's everybody else think? Rennie?
I was just wondering, the family of Woodstock, for some reason, declined to take their allotment. I'm wondering if they would want to renew that, or, because I think, like we're saying, we had some pretty clear criteria, and I think it'd be good if we do go. So if Woodstock, see if they wanted to take some of that money or go to Rupco and see if they need more money. But then, I'm sorry, I'm having two thoughts here. One is the warming center. Is that a county project? Because it seems like to me this is going to be a really big issue come the winter, because not only do we need to have a warming center that's readily available, we're also going to have one that's COVID workable. And so that means, putting some money into creating some kind of barriers or protections, right? So I guess we can't specifically contract out for something with the COVID funds.
I think we can contract, Andy.
I'm not really sure. We'd have to find out about that.
I mean, basically, when we have our sub-recipients like Rupco, who's doing housing assistance for us, we're contracting with them. They're taking the rental assistance. Repco is accepting the applications and reviewing them.
So when you're contracting out, you just have to keep in mind that they're going to ask for program delivery too. So that's either deducted from what you're allocating to them, or you have to think about that and add more to it. Because they're not going to do it for free. Nobody does anything for free.
Mayor?
I think one of the issues that we ran into during the last allocation process is that when we put out the application, we put out an application that, followed all of the CDBG CV guidelines. And so they have very wide buckets of what is eligible for the coronavirus relief funds. So everything from economic development for businesses that have been impacted to some of the same folks that you funded, like food, and housing, but also to help support nonprofits from kind of keeping their doors open during this difficult time. And so we didn't put out any specific criteria because we just went by HUD's criteria. When it got to the Common Council, as you guys mentioned earlier, you guys kind of created your own criteria that you wanted to focus on, which is fine. But it did turn off a lot of applicants that felt as though they applied under the guise of kind of qualifying under CDBG guidelines, but then felt as though the Common Council process kind of made it feel as though they didn't qualify kind of on your own guidelines. And so we've heard a lot of feedback since then from some different groups that didn't get funded. And so I think that that's the concern, about reopening this up, is that if we reopen up and say that, this is what the community development block grant guidelines are, it then puts them in a little bit of a difficult position if really all the council wants to fund are food and housing related organizations. And so how do we communicate that? And then how does that, because I'm also supposed to be part of this trio. Not only do I, have to make recommendations to you, I also have to sign off on the resolution at the end. How does that work with kind of my priorities too? And how are we doing this together, I guess?
So, I would be in favor of those applicants that have already applied. Some we funded, some we didn't. I would be in favor for the mayor, to look at those organizations again, because then it still has to come back to the council, right? Or in the same way that we do it anytime we allocate funds. So, I do agree with if we open it up to a whole new round of applicants, I think that's going to put us in I think it's going to just maybe open up a can of worms. I think we should focus on the ones that we have, the applicants that we have already. And, maybe we can give more money to some of the ones that we wanted to give, like the housing and the food, and then at the same time, maybe fund some of those other organizations that applied for the monies too, So it's got to come back before us again anyway. And then we can take another look at it and we can go from there. So I would be in favor of doing that.
If I could rephrase what you're saying, Rita, you don't want a new application. You just want to use the old applications? Okay. All right, go ahead, Jeffrey.
But in that case, would we only be considering the people that were denied? Because, right, if we funded somebody to their full ask, for example, Robco, and they come and they say, well, now we need more to do more housing assistance. Would we not give them a chance to do that again?
Yeah, I would. That's why I said, maybe we can fund or we can give more to some of those organizations that we wanted to give to, but didn't. It would just be that same pool of applicants, though. You understand what I'm saying? So if Repco came back, say Repco wanted 100,000 and we gave them 80, you know, we might be able to give them that extra 20,000 with these funds.
But what if we need more now? Because now we're looking at, you know, entering into a winter where we really don't see an end in sight to this. So they might want, like Repco, which, you know, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I'm just using what the numbers you used, Rita. I don't know if they're accurate, or you just are doing what I'm doing too. If they actually, you know, they asked for 100, we gave them 80, so there's 200 or 20 left.
Okay.
But now they need 100 to get through the next 4 months. I just think it would be good to give folks a chance to reapply if their needs have changed. And some organizations, like Steve Shabbat had said, maybe there's folks who missed around. So I think just to stay inclusive, or as inclusive as possible, I'd like to see a kind of a compromise of that, saying let's use the old ones, but feel free to amend, and if anybody else wants to apply. That's what I'm in favor of.
Actually, that's what, yeah, I got cut off again, but that's what I started to say. Can we do a combination?
I can do that.
All right, Jeffrey?
Decide right now, though, because I mean, it's a lot to consider. I think, yeah. Can we come back to this
Yeah,
at
I mean,
next meeting and make a decision once we look at all the options?
Yeah, and technically
Yeah,
this
since we
wasn't on
haven't
the
even gotten
agenda.
it yet, I don't. Right.
It would be
Mayor,
nice
you
to
wanna-
have this officially
you wanna
on
say
the
something?
agenda for next month.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so from,
Mayor?
yeah, so from my perspective, you know, I can do whatever process, you know, meets the CDBG guidelines, which includes putting out a new application, you know, and that process just takes time. And so, you know, I would want to get started on that process now, if we were going to put out a new application, because the thing that is a little bit complicated, and, you know, if we don't have to do it tonight because it's getting late and my computer is on battery and I'm about to die here. But the general concept is that we have to amend the 2020 action plan to be able to get these funds allocated and approved. And we can't really do that until, like, we kind of have to do that at the same time that we're allowing the 2020 applicants to kind of go into the system, if that makes sense. And so if we delay this process too long, we are in essence also delaying all of the people that you gave funds to for 2020, which were supposed to start back in July of 2020 through next July. So if we take, and this is not our making, this is HUD's making, if we take too long with getting this process started and going and allocating, it will delay the ability for some of these other groups and nonprofits. If we take too long with getting this process started and going and allocating, it will delay the ability for some of these other groups and nonprofits to actually get reimbursed. Right, Mandy? Am I getting that right? Or Amy? Am I close?
Yeah, for the first round of CV funding, we have to do an amendment to.
Amy, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mandy. Mandy first.
We have to do an amendment to the 2019 for the first round of the CV money. And
Yeah, go ahead, Mandy.
then we have to do an amendment to the amendment so that people can get their money. So the longer we draw this out, the longer it's going to be for anybody to get the money.
But I can get started on doing the application process and
so-
getting all of that out there to folks. And by the time, even by your next meeting, we won't be able to have all of those back in and reviewed in time for the next month's meeting. But so we would basically be looking at the earliest, you would be getting to look at a group of applicants come November at this point. And that would be pushing it. So, you know, if the general consensus is that you want to do applications, then I'm going to have my team start working on applications. That's generally the sense that I've gotten tonight. And that's all I want to do. There's no action that needs to be taken. I just wanted to I didn't want to go through the whole application process. And in the end, you guys be like, oh, you could have carved 2 months off by just going through the people you already had. So if the consensus is to move forward with new applications, then that's what we'll do, and we'll continue down that road, and we'll start the process as soon as we can.
All right, let me just put this out there. I mean, it kind of sounds like time is of the essence, at least for convenience sake. I don't think this is, an earth-shaking deal that we can't arrive at a decision tonight. I mean, I certainly feel like I can. I mean, I'd like to see a new app, plus use the old apps. That would be my preference. Does everybody want to try and get this accomplished tonight? I mean, granted, it's kind of new, but I mean, I don't think in a month's time my opinion would change much. Amy?
Well, the mayor's point is well taken that if you do open up to new applications, we need to put an ad in the paper. You have to give them a couple of weeks to submit. Then they have to be processed and submitted to you. If there are additional ones, I mean, you already have 40. So, and if new people apply, do you want to consider the new ones plus the 40 all next month, or do you just, I don't know if we could get them back to you by next month. Do you, Mayor?
No, I think we would get you the applications communicated for the November community development meeting. It would be my sense. We'd roll out the application, we'd get them all back in, we would review them for eligibility like we did the last time. I would make my recommendation them in December. And, I think that that's generally the process. And so again, Steve, I just wanted to kind of get a sense. I don't need any action from the committee tonight. I just wanted to get a sense of what the committee was looking for. So we'll just start the application process, which is what I was thinking about, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page because we're supposed to be doing this together.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate that. All right. Any other questions, comments? Amy, go ahead.
What is the feeling if somebody's applied and been denied? Do we tell them no new applicants need apply? Or how do you want to do that? Or if you've already received, you can't apply. What do you want to do?
I would say that if their application is still relevant and they want to apply, I don't see the need for them to redo an application and for you all to reprocess the application. So I think if it's still a working, relevant application, then we don't have to have them write again.
Right, for COVID use. In line with the COVID.
The 40 that we looked at, yeah, if they're still.
I mean, some of them are no
All right.
longer.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Amy. Then Jeffrey.
Some of the applications are no longer relevant. They were summer programs or online tutoring, because when school was suspended last year, things were, pretty loosey-goosey. So I don't know if you want to reconsider.
But that's why I said just let them know if it's still relevant.
Okay.
And then they could say not going to do anything, or they could say.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. Yeah, and exactly. If the application is still relevant, if it's a program that still can be implemented, or a program that's already being implemented that they want to amend it and ask for their funding to be expanded, I think we should give them that option rather than having to submit a brand new application and having to process it.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Anybody that submitted already, I don't think should have to fill out a brand new application. We should be able to use their old ones. I think that's good. Okay, you got that, Mayor? Okay. Anyone else? That's it? Okay. I believe that's it. And I don't think there's any other new business. So before I ask for a motion to adjourn, and just thank everybody. This was a very informative meeting, helpful. I think we did a good job striking some compromises here. I think this is a good idea. I think we're going to use some of this money for some very good purposes. I like it. So I thank you all for your input and just being here and helping out with the process. All right. Thanks, Mayor, for being here. Thanks, everyone. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion, second. Okay. Anybody opposed? All right. Let's go eat supper.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night.
Night. Night.
Good morning, Andrea.